ఉంది. Check. 1, 2, 3, check. You didn't participate? So I was coming. I didn't expect this road closure. I thought it would be done, but there was this road closure, so I had to go around and come. That's the reason for my delay. So based on this, there is a disturbance to commuters because of a festival that's happening around. So what's your take on this as an UPSC aspirant? What do you think? Festivals like this, celebrations like this, should they be happening or should they be banned? Because it is causing a lot of trouble in so many ways. What are the negatives that is happening? Let us take the example of Ganesh Visarjan only. There's a lot of noise pollution, a lot of air pollution with the crackers and all. Yeah, light pollution also, okay. Decoration and all, so you're generating a lot of paper waste. Water pollution, okay. So don't just say water pollution, you tell how it is causing POP, idols getting dissolved into local water bodies, polluting the water. So be specific. And disturbance to commuters because of the road blockages. And okay, we're still talking about the problems. Ah, so these are all the problems. Based on all these problems, what do you think? There are so many problems, right? So should we ban it or not? First answer this question. Should we ban? We should not ban. Okay, why should we not ban? Yes, so such activities are community building activities. Okay, it has got cultural significance, yes, specific to one religion, but you always see multi-religious people getting involved here. There is a lot of economic activity going around all of this. Yes, when I say economic activity, starting from whatever is causing pollution, your lights, sounds, all the dole teams. So these people have seasonal employment. You have something called as seasonal employment. That is sugar canes and more coconuts specifically in summer season. Ice creams specifically in summer season. So there is very less sales of ice creams in winter and rainy. So you call something like that as a seasonal employment. So is these things. The usage is very limited. Maybe in festivals, marriages, that's it. So this is one additional opportunity for those people. So there is a lot of economic activity that is going around this festival. This is not just a happiness of a certain set of people. Getting it? So what do you do? To so your answers, your way forward is to not ban it, but put regulations, minimize the bad effects that it has, and see how good you can take it forward. Yeah, because the advantages are, you also, when you say disadvantages, you also talk about advantages, because don't give this negative mindset impression. Even they ask, they don't ask, put a small diagram, advantages put, if there's no space, if there's no time, if it is not asked, but still you put it. Okay, that shows that your answers are balanced. Okay, so what are the advantages? Like I said, community building. Okay, the whole group is coming together to celebrate one thing, unity, and multi-religious people are getting involved. Okay, there we are promoting secularism, and even for youth it's helpful. Actually, this is a skill building activity, leadership, organizing. You learn it from a very young age. You see, most of it is done by youth. And as it is always there, the cultural significance. holding to our grassroots. Ganesh festival is not just culturally significant, but it also has a historical thing. It was started during the freedom struggle as part of Swaraj movement to bring oneness. So that tradition is being continued. It is holding to our roots. It is not, it is also not forgetting the freedom fight. And what are the other advantages? Economic activity, a lot of economic activity around. So what can you do to minimize the problems? Next part. What can you do to minimize the problem? So when you're writing an answer, if the question is asking about problems, you directly start with problems. You give a brief history on what it is and directly go to problems because the question is about challenges. So you directly start the challenges. After, whenever you write about challenges, you definitely mention what are the advantages because everything has got both pros and cons. Nothing is one-sided. There is no black and white. Everything is a gray area. So you also mention advantages, what it is. And then your answer talks about way forward. So in suggestions, you have two things. One is government measures that are already in place. List couple of them that are already in place. There are already regulations on sound levels. They are not supposed to exceed 100 decibel. But who cares? No one cares. That's a different issue. So what do you do for that? You bring awareness among people. You conduct more campaigns. Maybe you conduct a seminar because there is this list that the police, the local police conducts. They take a list, they have the name of the organizer, there is a number allotted to each bundle. So you call the organizers, you conduct a seminar to them. So you have one-to-one interaction, you have accountability there. So bring accountability to the organizers. Okay, this is all this all becomes a conventional way. This is not a legal way. This is just a convention that you can put up to bring more responsibility. Okay, so think of such innovative ideas. What is already in place? Government has already put restrictions on sound, promoting promoting mud idols and not clay idols and not POP idols. So better implementation of policies that are already in place. Don't say they're not being implemented. Say there are some policy gaps. They have to be implemented well. Okay. And anything else around Ganesh Visarjan? Hmm. అమ్మో అవన్నీ లోకల్ పాలిటిక్స్ అసలు వాటి జోలికి వెళ్ళలేము. Yes. Okay, so you list couple of government measures that are already in place, first couple of them, and then you give you suggest yourself few innovative ideas like this, couple of them, and then your conclusion must be don't ban it, never say never, never, never say never. Okay, no stopping. It is only finding a way. Okay, out of that context, I just very recently got to know what's the idea behind this mud Ganeshas and the puja we do. So you put all these leaves to Ganesha, saying it they're all his favorite, right? So the concept behind it is the major source of water was wells in olden days. So especially in this season, okay, in the month of September when the rains are starting in between the rainy season, so there is a lot of water contamination that is happening, and because of this water contamination people would get diseases. So to avoid all of this, these are those specific type of medicinal plants which have the capacity to purify the water. So if you just throw them as is, for the bacteria to build, you also need you the conducive environment. So for that sake, you also put mud in it, you also put these leaves in it. So that's the concept of putting a mud idol. Worship it with these, because people, it is easy to reach to people through your culture, through your tradition. It is easy. Okay, when you say it is your religion, you're supposed to do it, you don't question, you just do it. So that's the reason these specific type of medicinal plants were used to worship the idol. After the whole worship is done, these are taken, put into that well. So the bacteria is built, the decomposition happens, and the water is purified. Now the water is ready to drink. That was the whole purpose. What are we doing now? Whole different story. Okay, done. So it's nice. We had couple of um, chief guests coming visiting our this thing. So there was this person from DRDO who is the chief engineer. He's a chemical engineering uh, graduate, and then he's the key scientist for developing this decomposable plastic. Apparently, a plastic bag which takes 500 to 700 years to decompose. During COVID, they have um, invented a decomposable plastic which could decompose in 90 days or 60 days. So that is the bag that's given in Tirumala, Tirupati Devasthanam for your prasadams. So I met that person. So that's the bag that they have created. So good. These things also give you a stage to know new things, meet new people. Not good for your answer. This point is not good enough for your answer, but just sharing. Okay. So today is September 7th. What day is it? Wow. International Day of Clean Air and Skies. Okay. So the theme for 2025 is running. Whenever you're talking about any days or any conferences, okay, any new report, you always have something called as theme. This is important. You get questions around theme. Okay, for all these things, racing. So these themes are important. They directly ask what was the theme of so and so report or so and so theme in your prelims. They directly ask what was the theme. Okay. So why is this important now? And what's the main objective? It is to raise awareness and also mobilize global action against air pollution. So that is deducible, right? You can use your common sense to find out what is the objective. But theme, you have to write, you have to revise. Okay, so why is it important? Air pollution, clean air. What is all this concept? So, Article 21. What is Article 21? Right to life. So as we already know, Article 21 is the most interpreted article of Constitution, including Article 19. So there, it is being enumerated by Supreme Court every now and then based on the cases. So as per Article 21, right to pollution free air or pollution free environment is also an indirect fundamental right. Okay, so this is the national significance. Internationally, you have something called as Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. So how many of them are there? 17. So can you name one related to 13? Climate change, life above water, life on land, life below water. I am not giving these numbers on purpose, not because I don't know. I want you to list down all 17 goals. Note them in a separate sheet of paper and remember. Okay. So, clean air is indirectly part of these three. So, that's the international goal that you have. Okay. What is the national significance as part of fundamental right? Article 21, right to pollution free environment is also a fundamental right. Okay. So one task for you today is you will list down all 17 SDGs and remember one, what is one? No poverty. Two, zero hunger. Three, good health. Three, four, education. Five, gender parity. Okay. So learn all 17. Huh. So now, what is the significance? Why is it so important? So this is the context. Why is it important? We have built the context. What is the national importance? Why is it necessary? What is the international importance? Now, what is it? Why are we talking about this now? Because surprisingly, air pollution is the second largest reason for deaths globally or annually. Globally, because I said international day, globally. And it is also causing premature deaths. What is premature death? So you have a lifespan of 70 years, but you die at the age of 50 because of a sudden heart attack. So that is premature death. Okay. So what is it causing? Heart problems, lung problems, as in respiratory problems. That is why clean air is very important. Okay. We usually don't connect deaths directly to pollution. We know it's bad, but not to this extent. So there is approximately 8.1 million, see, sound pollution disturbing people who are working. So the difference in your answers while you write, it causes premature deaths. Extension, you write because of what? More value addition, you specify a number. Okay, this is how you do value addition to your answers. Is this right? Yes. Is this good? Yes. This is very good. This is how you extend your knowledge. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay? Huh. So, now that's the reason that's the importance, the significance of having clean hair. These are the problems. This is how huge the problem is. Okay. Now, let us learn about air and also see about air pollution. Okay, about air. So, what's the composition of air? చిన్నపిల్లల్లాగా ఆక్సిజన్ నైట్రోజన్ అట్లా చెప్పద్దు. ఫస్ట్ నైట్రోజన్ వాట్ పర్సంటేజ్? By weight or by volume? These are the tiny details that you have to catch hold for prelims. These are your traps. Next, how much? Then zero, very less. Next, next. Okay. So, out of all these, now carbon dioxide is part of environment. Okay. Now, there is a gas which is essential. It is part of the environment. Now, what makes it a pollutant? For everything, there is a balance, there is a level. Once it crosses the level, the advantages are gone, the disadvantages start popping in. So, that is when something becomes dangerous. For example, ozone. Ozone, when in stratosphere, is good because it absorbs UV light. Okay, but at ground level, ozone is treated a pollutant. Ground level ozone is one of the major pollutants. But the same ozone, when in the level of stratosphere, is good for Earth. We talk about ozone level layer depletion. We consider it a huge problem. So it's the same element, but the placement matters. The concentration matters. Okay. So when we are talking about air, this is the general composition of air. Now let us talk about air pollutants. So what is a pollutant? Anything that exceeds its level and causes harm is called as a pollutant. Now what are the common pollutants that you have? Nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, ground level ozone, methane, volatile organic compounds, you have something called as particulate matter. So what is particulate matter? 210, 2.5 are the sizes of it. So these are the solid and the liquid pollutants that are there in the air. Okay. So these are the general pollutants that you have. Okay. Lead. Now you have something called as air quality index. Yes. So what is air quality index? AQI, air quality index. So what are the sources? Always when you're writing about sources, try to think in these terms, especially when coming to environment perspective. natural, anthropogenic. Now, air quality index. How many pollutants are there? How many categories of alerts that are given? Not three. We are more aware of three. There's red, there's deep red. There is green, there's light green. There's orange, there's yellow. Okay? Okay. So it is developed by, it is given by Central Pollution Control Board. So it is important to remember these details with the help of IIT Kanpur. So even these institutes are important. These numbers are important. Now, what are the 8 pollutants is also important. Okay. So the 8 pollutants are NO2, CO, SO2, ground level ozone, CH4, lead, particulate matter 2.5, particulate matter 10. You generally write it as PM10, PM 2.5. अच्छा ये 8 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 and 8. All these 8 are also important. They give a list of 10 and ask you to identify what are there in the air quality index, what are considered. So remembering these 8 is also important. Okay, so how many categories are there? 6 categories are there. Okay, and it is given city wise. Is it there in every city? Only main cities. Okay. So they have also clearly mentioned about each pollutant also. What is the percentage of each pollutant that's there in points? Okay. So now we will also see any report around it. Air pollution. I told you, usually when you're reading in 2025, usually reports are from 2024 because that is when the data, the whole data is collected by the end of the year, analyzed, and the reports are generated in 2025. So, India is the 6th most polluted country in the world. Okay, 6 out of 10 cities globally are Indian cities. 13 out of 20 cities globally are Indian cities. So this facts establish the severity of the problem. Okay. So you understand about how you read an article, how deep you go. So you build a lot around the context and grab as much as data as you can. Okay. I will do one totally facts based thing. Recently, Ramon Magsaysay Awards were released. Magsaysay. It is very important to learn spellings while you are writing mains answers. Okay. 2025. So usually these are released in the month of September, and Nobel Prizes come in the month of October to December, given in December, announced in October. Okay. So this is also called as Asian Nobel Prize. Okay. Now, when we are talking about awards like this, you know the origin. Okay. For all these awards, usually there is a trust who are funding. So the context here is an seventh Philippines president. So he introduced this, built a trust, and this trust takes it. So categories. Whenever you're talking about awards, especially Nobel, these categories is important. Okay, usually you have peace, literature, science. Okay, these are the categories that you usually have. So when you're doing awards, what do you learn? You learn what are the categories, and then you learn what is the origin. Okay, and then you learn this year who has got what, all in general and very specific if something from India has come up. Okay, that is how you do awards. So what all do you do in awards? You learn the origin, you see the categories, and you see which Indian, if there is any Indian. See, these awards are not just given to a person, they are also given to institutions and organizations. So if any Indian origin institute or person has received these awards, so you will learn and remember their names along with the category. So sometimes they can also directly ask you match the following questions, wherein they give the category of awards, the name of the persons, and try ask you to match their field. Okay. So you learn all these things. Let it be Raman Magsaysay, let it be your Nobel Prizes. Okay, you have to remember those names. Yeah, we got one. So there are 6 categories here. One of the NGOs, Foundation for Educating Girls Globally. Important. So this is an organization that received this award for this year. Okay. So you learn if any Indian origin or any Indian national has got an award. And then you also see the history. Who is the first person? First Indian person. To be more specific, we don't need the global data. You need who, you will also see who is the first Indian person, and also that specific list of Indians also. Previously, whoever got. The names are very less. It is less than 10. So just write down, keep seeing it couple of times. At least few of them will stay in your mind. When you're seeing the prelims answers, you can pick up. You will be able to pick up. So who we will see, who are these Indians who got these awards. మనం అందులో ఉంటే బాగుంటుంది కానీ బయట ఉంటే బాగోదు కదా. Ivi, these questions you don't get for mains at all. It is just for the sake of prelims. So any major change that is happening in the last 5 years, you note down. Changes you definitely note down because those are their traps. Someone who's reading old data will be gone with those questions. So changes you read. Anything, number of categories increased, decreased, a new category added, all of them become important. So first was Vinoba Bhave. Who's he? Vinoba Bhave. Bhudan movement. He was the first Indian to receive this award. And then Mother Teresa. Okay. Couple of others include Jayaprakash Narayan, Kiran Bedi, Arvind Kejriwal. ఎందుకు అంత షాక్ అయ్యో పాపం రావద్దా ఆయనకి. He was a very sincere IAS officer, IRS officer. Aruna Roy, she worked on right to information. Okay. So these are purely fact-based articles. You read the origin, you learn the history, who are the previous Indians, you learn the categories, and then this year awards. Everyone in general, Indians in particular. Okay. We have done external affairs last year, last week. So now I want to do one article on internal security. Okay. So internal security is part of what paper? Internal security. Okay. So recently, in between central government and Manipur government, something has happened. It is called as suspension of so this is the second one. Okay. First already happened in the year of 2008. Okay. So this is in news now. Because this is in news, you will read what is happening in Manipur. Why did this come in the first place? Why? Okay. When was the first time? Now, what are the changes now? What is the need that has come up again? So these are all the things that you will learn. Okay. Okay. So Manipur, as we know, is part of northeastern India. So what is happening in Manipur? When you talk about northeastern states, including Manipur, there are general challenges. So what are the usual challenges here? Typical topography. Yeah, hilly regions, uncertain rainfalls. So what will happen because of this? Less development when compared to mainland India and more tribal population. So we already know the ethical dilemma between acculturation and bringing them into our thing, changing their traditions, asking them to modernize versus letting them stay their way. Yeah. So there is more tribal population. Because of more tribal population and more traditional values, there are more ethnic conflicts. Yeah. ఎగ్జాంపుల్ రంగస్థలంలో ఉంది కదా అర్ధ రూపాయి పంచాయతీనా రూపాయి పంచాయతీనా మీకు తెలీదా so the whole fight between two villages started just for the sake of that 50 paise that has to be exchanged after a cards game అరవింద సమేతనా సరే అరవింద సమేత ఓకే అదే అందుకని కన్ఫ్యూజ్ అయ్యావు నువ్వు ఓకే okay so the reasons are to us when you're hearing it from outside are irrational but to them it's their pride fighting for generations losing lives not a small thing at all two different ethnic groups living in the same place always brings conflicts as simple as it to as complicated as Telugu people getting away from Tamil Madras disintegrating into Tamil Nadu and Andhra. So these are the ethnic conflicts that always exist when two different ethnic groups live at one place. In hilly regions, we know there are more number of tribes living at a gap of 10 kilometers. Every 10 kilometers, the language changes, the culture changes. It is a totally different tradition altogether. So there are more conflicts. Now, these are the general things about any northeastern state. These are applicable. Now, let us say see what is in specific to Manipur. So you have three major tribes. Cookies, huh? You have Meitei, Kuki, Nagas. These are the major. When I say major, I am talking in terms of population. Okay, so these three are the major tribes. Okay, we know the whole Manipur is this hilly region. So what happens is, suppose these are the mountains. Okay, now on the hilltops are living couple of communities. Okay, they are the Kukis living on hilltops. There are certain people who are living in the valleys. They are the Métis living in the valleys. And it is common sense to say life in the valleys is more balanced when compared to someone living on the hilltops, because on the hilltops it is more climate affected. Winters snowy, economic activities very less. So usually people living on the hilltops are nomadic tribes. These are nomads. So during winter seasons, because it is very cold up, they come down, go back in summers. So what is happening here is there is a lot of migration. These people, Métis, are settled here in the plain lands that are available in between. Now cookies are infiltrating. So what's happening? Competition to already existing resources. Already there are limited resources. Let it be land, let it be economic activities. Opportunity is already very limited to Métis. Now what is happening? Cookies are very frequently infiltrating into the valleys. నా ఏరియాకి నువ్వెందుకు వచ్చావు? So there are fights. So there is very huge conflict that is happening from a very long time. So Manipur got statehood in 1972. Okay. Even before Manipur getting the statehood, these conflicts existed. Even after Manipur getting the statehood, these conflicts existed. Okay, same like Telangana and coastal Andhra. Okay, so these conflicts still exist. Even till date, they exist. What happened was in 2005, there was a very major conflict that erupted. There was loss of lives in tens of people. For tribes, tens of people is also huge. Okay, so in tens of people there was loss of life and thousands of people were getting displaced. We have already discussed displacement of tribes is a major issue that India is facing today, and thousands of people are getting displaced. So keeping all of these things in mind, what the central government with the help of Manipur government has done is brought up some in 2008. It brought something called suspension of operations. So as part of this, they could live in military camps. Who? Cookies, because these are the people who are changing their place, moving from hilltops, trying to settle in the valleys. So they were give. So these are something like these are like the refugee camps. So government is now officially organizing refugee camps for them so that they wouldn't disturb the habitat of Métis. That's the concept. Okay, and there were certain rules and restrictions that were put on the movement of cookies, their movement, their activities, and what were the facilities provided to them as part of SOO was defined. So this is all the backstory. It is happening. Now recently, there's again too many complaints from the Metis about infiltration and illegal activities that are being taken, that are conducted by the cookies. So that's the reason government has once again revised and made it stricter for cookies. So there are couple of things that were done as part of 2025's SOO. Okay. So in all of the northeastern regions, any problem? So as part in all of the northeastern regions, you always have the problem of foreigners migrating in through the borders illegally and living as Indian citizens. So because they are all tribal people, it is difficult to figure out Indian ethnicity. If it is a South Indian, there are usually Dravidian. It is easy to recognize. But whereas when you're talking about those tribes, their ethnicity completely changes. It is difficult for you to identify by the face of them. So it is easy for people from Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, Myanmar to infiltrate into the country, call themselves as part of one of these ethnic groups, and use the facilities that the government is providing. Okay, so now there are complaints from cookies saying these people are not among us. They are not part of us. They have come from outside. So now government, as part of SOO 2025, is now starting a new operation, is starting a new procedure wherein they want to eliminate these foreign nationals. Because already limited resources, how much ever is government spending is already not enough. So it is also government's responsibility that whatever money it is spending reaches to the Indian national only, with the limited scope of funds that we already have. Okay, so first is to eliminate these foreign nationals. Okay, second one is to restrict the number of camps, number of military camps, and also restrict the number of people in each military camp, because it is easy to organize small groups when compared with large groups. Okay, second is to restrict the number of military camps and the number of members in each military camp. Okay, they're also doing something called as camp relocations. Third one is financial restrictions. So as part of financial restrictions, there are these incentives that are coming from the government to people living in the camps. This money, whatever is coming from the government, is often used for anti-social activities like purchasing arms, fighting against the government because they are not getting something as per their desire. So there is a lot of arms trade, arms smuggling that is happening through these people. Okay, so what does it mean? The purpose for which the government is giving the money is not being utilized properly and is also not being distributed to the actual person in need. So what they have done is Aadhaar based physical identification of people and giving a direct transfer to them, making sure the funds are not misused. Okay, so that is the financial restriction that they have put on them. Okay, and then there is also a huge restriction on the use of arms, because arms major reason for bad conflicts. So restriction on the procurement of arms and use of arms. That's one thing. Last one, strict rule for them to abide by the Indian constitution and to honor the statehood status that is given to Manipur. Abide to the constitution and state's integrity. So these are exclusively enumerated as part of SOO 2025. Okay. So what do you understand out of this while doing any internal security issue? When they say a new agreement has come up between a private organization or a state and a central government, you see what is the background, what is the actual problem there. You first learn that and then come back and see what did what does this specific agreement talk about. Okay. Now, after that, we will do one geography. Okay, because I want to tell you, whenever you're doing river systems, I will give you, I'll tell you what all you're supposed to do as part of river systems. This is part of geography. Environment to an extent. Okay. So whenever you're doing a river system, take a separate A4 paper and try to make this chart. Okay, you first write name of the river. అంత పెద్ద పేపర్ తీసుకోండి మీరు కూడా. And then when you're talking about any river, you will know where is the origin. Okay. After you write the origin, you write what are the states it is passing through. 3 states. And now list the 3 states. Its flow. And then you write the tributaries. What are the tributaries? Those major rivers which join the main river. So here when you're talking about tributaries, now this is your main river. There are few joining from here. There are few joining from here. Okay, these are the right tributaries. These are the left tributaries. So it is also important for you to categorize them as right, left. Okay. So you categorize the tributaries as right tributaries and left tributaries. And whenever there is a tributary, it is coming and meeting the main river at one point. This point is also very important. Okay, the location, the source, the point of joining. Till here it is mostly geography. And when you're doing it, try doing it with the help of a map. It helps you while you're doing mains answer writing. It is very easy. You can put a lot of data just with one map. Okay. Now, after you're done with this, you see what are the dams or any other projects. List of dams or any projects existing on that river. Okay. Then see national parks. With that, you will also see what are the animals. For example, when you're talking about Brahmaputra river, you talk about rhinos. So you also see what are the national parks. So this is the table that has to be ready. So just to keep adding to this table. So all the information is at one place, easy for you to revise. You can also include facts like east flowing or west flowing. Okay. Now we will talk about Yamuna River. Okay, in one of the previous classes, I already discussed a little about Yamuna River. Can you recollect what is the origin? Yamunotri Glacier. So whenever we're talking about a river, you also know the origin of it. మన క్లౌడ్ బస్ట్ అప్పుడు నేర్చుకున్నాం కదా, as part of Uttarkashi district in Uttarakhand. Okay, so it comes under the Mussoorie range of lower Himalayas. Where is this Yamunotri glacier? It is part of Mussoorie range. Mussoorie is where you're all going for training after your exam once you are selected. Yeah. So Mussoorie range of lower Himalayas in the Uttarkashi district of Uttarakhand, there is something called as Yamunotri glacier, and the river Yamuna originates from Yamunotri glacier and is the major tributary to river Ganga. There are three major Himalayan rivers. One is Indus, second Ganga, third Brahmaputra. These are the three major rivers, and all of the other rivers are the big and small tributaries to three major rivers. So Yamunotri is part of Ganga river system as part of Himalayan river drainage. Okay. So about when we are talking about Yamuna river, Yamunotri glacier, what states it is passing through? So it passes through, it starts from Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Haryana, no, it doesn't go to Punjab, Haryana and Delhi. Uttar Pradesh unda. Okay, it joins the river Ganga at Prayagraj, also called as Triveni Sangamam. Okay, so the location where it is joining, that becomes important. Then, what are the problems? Major problems of that river. Okay, main problem about Yamuna river is pollution. On the banks of it is Taj Mahal, and you know this green and brown spots that are forming on Taj Mahal because of air pollution along with the water pollution. The river which is just flowing across beside Taj Mahal. Okay, why is this happening? Why is the river getting polluted? Now this becomes a very general answer. Rapid urbanization, unplanned development, encroachment into the river, climate change, factory pollutants and all effluents directly left into the water without treating. So these are all the general problems, right? So you understand how you read a river system. So there was this one editorial by Shashi Tharoor today in Hindu. So read that. He used really nice words like strategic, multipolar world, strategic influence. They're nice keywords that you can pick up from that article. లేదా ఇవాళ పేపర్లో లేదా నిన్నే అయితే నిన్నటి పేపర్ ఏమో అయితే Saturday's paper. Huh? So read that article. It's very nice. Okay. So in that context, let us see about the India's GDP. We are talking about the economic problems that are happening right now. So let us see what are the challenges that the Indian economic growth is facing and what can we do for it. As I told you, it is very easy to write solutions and suggestions once you are able to list the challenges properly. So you list all the challenges in a way, and then to each one, you give one or two ideas as your suggestions. It's very easy to write suggestions. No much brainstorming needed there. The whole brainstorming happens as part of, okay. So India has a goal of becoming developed country by 2047. So that's our target, and to become the third largest economy. What are we today? Fourth. Not because we did something great, just because Germany didn't do good. Okay, that's a fact, but government doesn't show it that way. Okay, so don't write these things in your exam. Okay, say we surpassed Germany and came and became fourth. Okay, and our target is to become third and become a developed nation by 2047. That's the target. So what are the challenges that are there for us to reach this challenge, to reach the goal? What is stopping us? Okay, so let us write one by one. So the first problem is manufacturing sector. Why manufacturing sector? Why MSMEs? Because that is where the value addition is happening. How do you calculate the GDP? Gross domestic product. That is where the whole economic activity is happening. So majorly through three sectors. Okay, for us to compete with world, because we already know what are the existing problems. We will go back there to in the agriculture, primary, secondary, tertiary sectors, agriculture part of primary sector, and we already have a huge problem of low productivity in agriculture. More especially agriculture, we have low productivity. So that is called as a structural barrier that is there. When agriculture is your key economy, there is supposed to come more innovation, more technology, more support from the government to agriculture. But our government, past a decade, is investing much on infrastructure projects. But that didn't give the result as much as the government expected. So that's the reason they are now coming back and focusing on agriculture again. So that's the reason you hear about urea, about high yield variety seeds. That's the reason you're reading about these things more in news today. Okay, so that see, anything is a trickle down effect in economy. There are various factors that lead to one thing. It is it is very complicated. It is not just one thing. For example, economic growth. It means GDP has to increase. So GDP is not increased just through agriculture. Okay, manufacturing of goods has to be there. Services should be there. So there are lot of reasons, lot of factors that are finally adding up to the actual economic activity. So government concentrates on one sector for a period of time, reaches its targets to a level, and then concentrates on other sector because the limited resource here is money. So it will allocate the money to each of the sector accordingly. Okay, so we now have a major problem in manufacturing and MSMEs. They are not performing up to mark. Startups are coming, but how many of them are turning into unicorns? Okay, how many startups are successful? How many MSMEs are able to compete with global markets? Our products are not able to compete in terms of quality, in terms of price. So these are the problems that we have, challenges. And then you have something called as structural barriers. Okay? Challenges for, I'm talking about growth, manufacturing, MSME stress. I'm talking only in terms of the editorial. Structural barriers. Technology adaptation. So when I say technology adaptation, I'm talking about transport, I'm talking about energy, I'm talking about machinery, transport is logistics. Infrastructure. Yeah. Lack of job creation. Why lack of job creation? Whenever there is a foreign direct investment that is coming, what is happening? A new technology is coming, new machinery is coming. A place where 10 people used to work is now being able to manage by 1 people. So there is a job loss for 9 people. I'm not saying job loss for 9 people. I'm saying 9 more jobs are not getting created. If it were only Indian technology, 10 jobs would have been created. But because of a foreign technology or huge investment, because of all this capitalization and technological advancement, only 1 job is getting created. So, less job creation. You're understanding? Okay, now there is 1 job. Do we have the skills? No. So, skilled labor. Okay. And then in economy, I don't want to go very deep. You have something called as formal economy and informal economy. Okay. So, formal economy is the one wherein provident fund is provided to the employees. They're registered with the government and provident fund is given to the employees as a social security after their retirement. But in India, 90% of our economy is informal. Huge. 90% informal economy. So how much of labor force is working here? There is a huge unorganized sector. So the economic activity that is happening in this unorganized sector, how are we calculating? How are we estimating it? పానీపూరి బండి అమ్ముకునేవాడు నెలకి 1,50,000 సంపాదిస్తున్నాడు. Okay. So how is it being calculated? How does the government know what's happening there? So it is just an estimated amount that we take from the unorganized sector. It is totally mathematics and economics. So they just project values based on the activity that is happening in the organized sector. They just project values, estimated values are added into our GDP through from the unorganized sector. But it is a well-known fact that it is always underestimated. So our actual GDP is much more higher than the figures that we are already talking about because of these two: informal sector, unorganized sector. Okay, so that's one thing. And then this is always there. There is policy lag. There are difficulties in implementation. So these are the problems. Now let us see what could be the solutions. As I said, if you know the problems, it is easy to write down the solutions. Yes, so let us try to figure out what are the solutions. So for any manufacturing sector, for any MSME, what are the four inputs? Land, labor, and capital. Here is our organization. So you need to bring reforms in these three things. Okay, like ease of doing business, then availability of loans. So for this reason, you have something called as primary sector lending. Yeah, in banks, primary sector lending in all banks. Yes, 40% for all commercial banks. Land, allotment, subsidies, reduce tax. Yeah, there are so many others. I'm just giving you a couple of them. Okay, and then infrastructure development. Increase the efficiency. When I say efficiency, I mean productivity. Okay, then advanced technology. Once the technology comes, next thing you need is labor. So, skilled labor. You do trainings, reforms in education. For infrastructure, you have something called as PM. Very important. So once you list down the problems, you think of one by one. Now, informal and unorganized sector. So what you do, you formalize the sector. How do you formalize? Once you register to a government, once you register your company to government, you're liable to pay tax. You don't want to pay tax. That's the reason you don't register. So you give tax benefits, you give more concessions. So formalization of the economy. This is how you can do. And then regional policies. What do you mean by regional policies? See, India is a very diverse country in terms of geography and also in terms of economy. Yes? So, an activity that is happening in a South Indian state is so much more different from what is happening in a North Indian state. One state is a leading supplier of a software service, while other state is a leading supplier of a raw material like iron ore. So every state's economic activity is totally different. Now, if I make a regulation or a law to the entire nation, it might not yield the results that we expect. So there should also be something called as regional policy making. So based on the economic activity that is happening in that specific region, you create laws. Okay. There is a, suppose in Uttar Pradesh or in coastal Andhra, where there are all paddy fields. What if government says, I will give 90% subsidy to a software company? Doesn't make any sense. That is what I meant by regional policies. Okay. So that is what it is. This is all about the domestic problems that we are talking about. Because PM in Man Ki Baat, he said it is important for us to, for Indians to buy Indian products. He gave this call last week. Yeah, because because of the 50% US tariffs, we are trying to find out alternate markets. So alternate markets is not just Germany, South Korea, Japan or Russia. It is also Indian market because our population is 144 crores, not any less. So if we can only make our products affordable to Indians when compared with exported Chinese or Korean products, that is also creating an alternative market to Indian goods. As part of it only, as part of this whole scheme, we are talking about the domestic markets. Okay, making sense? Yes. Any doubts in whatever we discussed today? None? Done. That's it for today. So as you keep on studying, you should be able to write at least 25 points when I say what are the problems. Just like that, a flow of thought. So how does the flow come? When you go sector by sector, when you categorize and start thinking. If you randomly think, it gets difficult. There are high chances that you miss so many points. So think in a specific direction. First, think about land. What all can be done with land? What all can be done with labor? like that. What all can be done at a regional level, at national level, at international level. Even when you're writing about effects, you how you think is at individual level, at society level, national level, international level. So if you have this direction, it is easy to write more number of points. Done.